And welcome, Hacia Atherton. We're all very much looking forward to your presentation today and you telling us more about empowered women in trades. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Nikki, and thank you everyone for your time. So I'm the CEO and founder of Empowered Women in Trades, which is a group of organisations. One's a social enterprise and one's a charity. We've set up the charity arm to really focus on supporting vulnerable and at-risk women into the skilled trades industry. So to give you a bit of background about myself, I am very passionate about positive psychology, and after a horrific life-threatening horse riding accident, I really started to lean into the research of positive psychology and found my new passion to inspire women to see their remarkable potential whilst connecting them to their inner courage so that they can thrive in male-dominated fields. So I, outside of work, am a proud fur baby mum to Coco, Louie, Charlie and Boston. You may hear them meow and bark throughout this presentation, so I do apologise. I'm also from a fifth generation plumbing family, all being male plumbers, and because I was a female, my family actually encouraged me not to go into the family trade, but actually to go to university, as trades was not for girls. So that was kind of part of the background and the story to establishing Empowered Women in Trades, because if people like myself who had access to a rich range of resources to be able to enter the skilled trade industry was actually discouraged by over 130 years of plumbing history, what hope did other women out there that didn't have that access to enter the trades? So I took my family's advice and I went off and became a qualified accountant doing my Bachelor of Commerce. I'm now actually studying a Masters of Applied Positive Psychology at Melbourne University and really focusing my studies around how we shift toxic masculinity in male-dominated industries such as construction and manufacturing to create an environment of well-being where all can thrive and that women are treated in a respectful way and empowered to succeed in these industries. As I mentioned, I was a very high-level dressage rider. So my original passion in life from a very young age was actually to ride for Australia. My dad sailed for Australia, but the horse riding accident that happened just before I was about to qualify for the World Equestrian Games left me lifeless in a hospital bed. I had to learn how to stand again. I had to learn how to walk again, with doctors telling me I may never actually be able to walk successfully again. But I've actually run a half marathon since. So not only did I prove those doctors wrong about walking, I proved them wrong about a whole range of things. And that was a big motivation to do the half marathon. So that's kind of a bit of a background on my journey to where I've come to now. So growing up in my family, I was always aware of the skill shortage that we saw in trades, and our family company manufactures medical infection control equipment. And I'd never seen a female on our manufacturing floor through all of our different trades of welding, which is my personal favourite trade. And if I was going to be a tradie, I'd be a welder, to fitter turners and electricians. So when I became the Chief Commercial Officer of the family company and I was tasked with looking at how we future-proof the manufacturing side of our business, I really started to do some research into why are we not seeing more women out there. And at the time, this was in 2020, women only represented 2% of the skilled trade industry. We've moved to 3% very slowly. And there was quite a few high barriers to entry for women around blatant outright discrimination of people refusing to employ females because they're bringing too much high risk and they don't want to be sued for sexual harassment sexual harassment or anything like that. Some of the problems and barriers is as well they refuse to get a second toilet on site, or they don't want to get sanitary bins in their toilets and different things like that. And some of the excuses is they don't even want to be bothered to research female uniforms for tradies. So there's a whole big reason. as well as a massive lack of awareness. When I started interviewing a lot of women, besides your electrical, carpentry, and plumber, they didn't have much awareness of what a tradie actually does. And even in the plumbing industry, they all kind of thought of fixing toilets and things like that. The women didn't think of gas fitting, roofing, and different things like that. So what we designed was a solution where we co-design with industry immersive programs where we get our female participants into manufacturing facilities, onto sites, or into TAFE, where they can get hands-on with the tools and really immerse themselves in the environment, and bringing that overlay of positive psychology into all of our programs that we do to really help the women find that courage and that resilient mindset. Because once they find their passion for the trade, that's kind of the easiest step. And then after that, they do need to have a really resilient mindset and a fantastic toolbox of mental and emotional skills to navigate a lot of the challenges that they may find out on site, ranging from being told they're only on site because of the quotas, or being told that they can't do their trade because of they're a woman, all the way up to some severe sexual harassment that does happen on site, which we also are developing positive psychology corporate programs to really shift that toxic masculinity that we see in the construction, manufacturing, and particularly the mining industry. So our vision is to foster a future where women are empowered, represented, and thriving in skilled trades. Just a little bit of a side note, I sat on some round tables recently where the Victorian and Australian government's vision in this space is that women will just be safe in the industry. So that's, I feel, a basic human right issue and not a vision. So our vision is actually that women are thriving in these industries well past just being physically, mentally, and emotionally safe. Our mission is to see the representation within skilled trades to be 30% by 2030. And our purpose is to work with industry, government, and educational institutions to create an inclusive community that shifts the dynamics within the skilled trades and opens up the doors of opportunity for women. So why am I doing all of this? And it's really to challenge those traditional norms that I myself experienced, that skilled trades are exclusively for men, and work to break down the barriers that limit the career choice for women. We aim to create a more equitable society where women have equal opportunities to pursue any career path they desire without being held back. And how we do that is through our custom design immersive programs that have a female lens over them, and the deep connection with industry where we inspire women to pick up the tools and consider a career within the construction or manufacturing industry. And our corporate workshops support industry to do that shift in the culture that is needed to ensure that all in the workforce can thrive. So what we do is deliver a range of programs that empower women with knowledge to make informed decisions about starting a career in skilled trades. And that ranges from the right industry for them, the right style of employer for them, and also the right style of trade. Because if they're attracted to the electrical trades, for example, there's 6 different electrical licenses that you can do. So just knowing that you like working with electrical equipment, you need to have a bit more information to know which is the right direction for you. And then through our strong industry connections, we create pathways for women to actually gain meaningful employment with like-minded employers that also want to see these women thrive within the industry. So we bring a unique perspective and experience to the table through both our adaptability, our innovative thinking of our team, as well as my diverse lived background and growing up in a skilled trade family and a manufacturing company, and experiencing as well the discrimination and my own unconscious bias of buying into that societal norm that I never asked Dad if I could go onto the factory floor because I was a girl, so why should I be in the factory? We also have very high levels of resilience, not just in myself, but I'm very proud to say the team is a very resilient team. And we really pride ourselves on innovating and collaborating our design and delivery of our programs with our clients to make sure we're always tailoring it to the needs of our client. Because whether it is commercial construction or domestic construction or manufacturing, there's slight different nuances that each client has that we like to tailor in our programs. So being a startup, our weakness is definitely being able to stay connected to our participants post-program and really tracking their progress in the industry. So have they gone from pre-apprenticeships into apprenticeships? If they've gone into more ticketed-based roles into the industry, are they continuing to get tickets and progress their careers? Again, being startup, it's often hard to obtain government funding and grants because they would like to see more runs on the board, and it's often hard to get runs on the board without the government support or grants. And being a very small team with a large amount of work, there's high levels of team burnout with our limited resources, and a lot of us working over the weekends and late at night, which is something I would really like to focus on changing. There's so many opportunities in the industry, so to fit them into 3 dot points was a bit of a challenge, but there's currently very strong government focus on increasing female representation within skilled trades, both at state and federal level, with quotas in the Victorian state at the moment on commercial builds for the government, over $20 million, and quotas coming as well on Commonwealth projects, over $20 million as well. There's significant growth in the construction industry and the manufacturing industry. For example, within the electrical occupations, it's predicted to grow by 10.6% over the next 3 years, but it's already in a skill shortage of around 100,000 electricians. So there is a lot of work and opportunities out there. Also, the industry is very much looking at innovative ways to start recruiting women into their employment, and there is starting to be a shift in mindset, especially amongst the tier 1 builders and the tier 1 subcontractors that have a bit more infrastructure around HR policies and different support mechanisms to really support women to enter the industry. So our threats would be there is quite a few already established competitors out there that doing bits and pieces of what we do. So they either focus solely on the construction industry or they're tradeswomen themselves that focus on the automotive industry where they've come from. Like all businesses, with the economic uncertainty that we're starting to face, we've found it hard to secure kind of corporate sponsorship or even corporate donations to our charity. And that's just lead to, again, in startup land, often the ability to secure funding can make it hard for us to scale. So we have quite a dynamic target market. We're looking at women and non-binary people that are curious about trades to enroll in our programs. Then we're also looking at a target market of schools that are interested in opening up the pathways of different opportunities to their female and non-binary students, and we really love doing work in the school space. That target market also increases to parents, because parents are a big influence over the school students if they want to do a school-based apprenticeship, for example. And then another target market of ours is definitely the TAFEs and educational bodies. We like to form very strong relationships with them so that we can run our programs on their site and we don't have to have welding equipment and all the different tools. We can leverage off the resources that the TAFEs already have, as well as the experience of the TAFE teachers. Industry employers looking to improve their gender diversity and their culture, as well as government bodies that are really tasked with making this shift that we need to see in the industry. So our key competitors would be Tradeswomen Australia, that was established quite a while ago by an automotive mechanic. NAWIC, which is a massive global organisation that has chapters in all countries, and then RWIC, which is up in Queensland and very strong in Queensland, which we're finding it a bit hard to get boots on ground up in Queensland. So how we compete is definitely to continue to network with our stakeholders, and have that dual industry focus. We find a lot of our competitors are either focusing on one industry and not the other. But we find it's quite beneficial because some women come through our programs, really enjoy electrical, for example, but don't like being in a construction environment. So the manufacturing environment's better for them. And another example is women that have come through our welding program and really loved welding, but didn't like the manufacturing industry, and they're more interested about getting on site and doing structural welding in the construction industry. So I think that's a really unique offering that we can guide the women across two different industries. And then as well, building a really empowering brand. So we find a lot of our other competitors aren't really focusing on building up that community, that brand, that fun. None of them have any merchandise or run overly many kind of brand activation events with other brands. Like I'm in this photo wearing steel blue boots. We're looking at doing a fashion show with steel blue and different things like that, just to start to build some kind of brand activation and brand awareness, which none of our competitors are doing. I feel a massive strong advantage is my history, in my family history in plumbing. I come to site all the time and everyone's like, oh, you're an Atherton, you're the first female Atherton we've ever seen, and all this kind of stuff. So there's already quite a lot of love for the Atherton name in the industry, which is great, and some transfer respect that I have personally worked in the industry as well. And they know that I've got a strong love for welding, because when I was 29, Dad put me in the factory and said, learn the company from the factory side now that you're a qualified accountant. And I absolutely fell in love with welding, as well as the strong incorporation of positive psychology into all of our programs, which I think is a very key offering, because regardless of whatever career pathway our program participants choose, the positive psychology, the well-being, the fostering that sense of real courage and empowerment, encouragement and empowerment within our program participants, they can take that with them to any industry as well. So the support required, we're definitely in the scaling stage. We've got a good foundation for our core program of that talent attraction program, but we need to start activating other streams of revenue. I say our programs are for purpose, not for profit. So we need to start bringing in some different revenue streams that have that more profit focus over purpose. So in that, we're looking at launching our positive psychology corporate workshops, which range from 1 hour or half an hour tool talks, all the way from half-day workshops to full-day workshops. Looking at launching an online platform called Tradie Connect, which will be kind of a mixture of LinkedIn for tradies. There'll be educational resources on there. There'll be mates rates. We'll run networking events and do things like that. So that will be a membership-based platform. And then the skills that we require. So I'm an accountant of my background. So the branding and marketing strategy for all of our programs and products is something that I struggle with. I've got limited Canva skills, but it's got me so far, the good old Canva. And now definitely needing to look at different things around go-to-market strategies for the corporate workshops and the Tradie Connect platforms, as well as building that strong community building strategy to be able to especially feed them into that tradie network platform and have people come to the events that we want to run. So at the end of the day, EWIT is building a better future for women and manufacturing an equitable world for all.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Hacia. That was amazing. Who wants to jump in first? I'm sure you're all burning with questions and comments.
I have a question.
Go, Lizzie.
I was just going to ask, what jobs or sort of careers are your target market currently in? I'd be interested to know if there's, a certain industry that, more sort of likely to move over to the construction or the manufacturing industry, and have you sort of managed to identify what that is?
Yeah, the really unexpected thing, I thought there would be more consistency in it, but our programs so far have ranged from 15-year-olds to a 51-year-old was the oldest that had rolled in our programs. We've attracted people from just left school to still in school to long-term unemployed to university students that have got halfway through their degree and decided university is not for them. And those students have come from commerce, nursing, engineering, project management. So some university degrees aligning with the industry and some completely nothing to do with the industry. A lot of casualised work, so women that have been in the gig economy, women that are working at Woolworths or Coles at the moment, and a lot of admin and office based roles, and then quite a few from like retail and hospitality that again are looking for a bit more consistency and different things like that. So it's quite broad. We've had some teachers enroll that are just want to get out of teaching. So yeah, there hasn't been a real consistent actual demographic. It's very random at the moment.
Interesting. So just you've got you mentioned the schools, and I think
Yeah.
that would be quite a good piece. Do you have a program that is specifically sort of created for, I don't know, might be year 11s, year 12s?
Yeah, so we've got a program for year 7s and 8s that run just over a double period, because after a double period, you've definitely burnt that kind of age out. And they're just starting to think about what their future looks like. And then our year 9s and 10s, we've got a full day program that we can either do at the school, or we also have site partners where we bring the students out to a live construction site or a manufacturing site, and then they do the day there. And that program's got a lot stronger call to action to consider doing a school-based apprenticeship, or for the year 10s, if they're not looking to do VCE, do a pre-apprenticeship. So in that program, we build a lot more information around what are the 10 for a community grant, which was that learning how to use power tools and different things like that. So a lot of those women more were from a DIY background.
Hacia, great presentation, and you've just answered one of my questions, which was, one of my concerns, because I know that women don't prioritise spending on themselves, and particularly if they're in, some of the roles and industries that you described. I think, that the cost will be a barrier. The other barrier that I'm curious to understand how you're going to navigate, or how you might be navigating, is that bias in the industry against employing women. Now, what's interesting from my perspective is that there's demand, and we know that there's a cliff that from a labour perspective, that organisations are already falling off in terms of we can't get people in, skilled people, but nonetheless, still hunting from the same labour pool. So how might you overcome the barriers from employers who aren't yet a Coca-Cola or aren't yet enlightened about this is the way of the future?
Yeah. So when someone comes to us and starts asking questions, we almost do a bit of an interview process to see if they're going to become an appropriate client or site partner. So that will be asking questions from a range of things. Do they have policies in place around maternity leave or parental leave, different things like that? We also start to get a vibe if they're just box tickers. If they come to us and say, we got a tender for a government job that's over $20 million, we want to run your program because we got to get chicks on site to be able to win this program, we actually refuse to work with them. So if they're not a like-minded organisation, we just refuse to work with them. And then we offer things like the corporate programs, saying, I think you need to do a little bit more internal work before you start bringing women into the environment. And we come from that from there's no point in having churn. There's no point investing time
couldn't
to
agree
bring
more.
women in just for them to leave your organisation. So if they again don't have the right policies and procedures, we will connect them with like the Victorian Chamber of Commerce and say, I think you should have a consulting session with them just to get the right legal infrastructure first. Again, if they don't have sanitary bins, we go back to I think you need to have at least an hour session of what do you need to do to provide an environment where women can thrive in. So we kind of are building up a beautiful community of like-minded people, and then the ones that we don't feel quite fit into the community yet, we're offering ongoing education or connecting to them with the right HR consultants that can help them get to
Well,
where
you
we
need to send them to me for a start, but anyway, we'll talk about that later.
We're
So
looking for referral partners.
yeah, cool. Okay, let's talk later. So that's the people who are coming to you. What about the people who don't even know you exist? And I've got to tell you, I'm one of them because I didn't know you existed till today, and gender equality in workplaces is my business. What about those organisations? Yeah, how might you outreach, or what's the plan to outreach to government, other, those large employers who simply don't know that this organisation exists? They will have heard of NAWIC because, despite the fact that NAWIC doesn't do a lot of merch and things like that, they are, anytime I talk about women in construction, people go, oh, NAWIC. So, I think there's the supply side and there's the demand side. So what are we doing on the demand side to raise the profile, or what's the plan there? And I guess, this I know this is part of it, but interested to hear your thoughts.
Well, and this was the discussion I was having with my girlfriend Chi, who then said, because I was trying to bounce some ideas off her because she does some PR and everything, and that's how that question that you've asked is what brought me here, because then she introduced me to Nikki. Nikki and I got chatting. She said I should do this program. So that is probably a question that I'm hoping this program will answer. So in a few months' time, I'll have an answer for you.
Okay, awesome.
Love it. You can see, Michelle, why I desperately wanted you in this pitch. Because I just think, the work that Michelle does, she's a diversity, equity and inclusion expert and does a lot of work in the corporate space and shakes it up. So I think...
And for those companies that go, oh, we've just won a big tender with the government, we need more women, help. And I'm going, really? Okay.
Yeah.
Anyway, good-o.
My mind's just going a million miles an hour. But I think... look, there's government mandates and there's tenders all the time. And so government have got to put their money where their mouth is. And I think the opportunity for us is to work with you around how we actually put more pressure on government and grants. There's got to be grants that support you to deliver on the policy positions that they're putting in place. So, it's great to say it, but what we need is some action. And I think when it comes to marketing and campaign and PR, that's the place that we play, because we can apply some serious pressure and say, okay, enough box ticking. It's almost what is happening is almost your campaign where we disallow the box ticking, right? And I think that's where we can start to elevate things. So I think government's a huge place. And then it's, for me, the opportunity for you is setting the example with the big...
Sorry, you're absolutely right there, because government they've put mandates or they put quotas in place without any enablement activity around it. So I wholeheartedly agree with you. There's a real opportunity there. I'm also curious about the auditing function, because I think that's a real strength, to say, hey, you're not ready to work with us. And how does that auditing function work? So, there are other organisations that do that kind of thing. So Work 180 have got an auditing function. You can't be advertised on their job board for women unless you're a certified employer, etc. So I think keep that in mind as well. Sorry, Nikki, I jumped in just because you're absolutely bang on about the government stuff.
Yeah, no worries. And then I think the other thing is picking a couple of big corporates to make a big statement with that's going to work reputationally for them as well. So which are the corporates that have the capability, the resources, the HR, the policy that we want to put as the gold standard or platinum standard, if you like, partner up, make a big hoo-ha about it and create the blueprint and the blueprint for rollout. And the other piece I think is, you're talking about how do you commercialize. Partnering is a great thing to do, but you could also build out a consulting arm of what you're doing because you know what's missing. So I would start with documenting what needs to happen, and that's almost going to create your own audit function And then there could be a recommendation piece. So it's who can work with you on that and how can you build that potentially as part of your offering. Yes, you could outsource. And I know you, as a small business and a startup, it's overwhelming because there's so many things to do. But that actually is where organizations have to spend money, particularly if they're tendering on big projects, right? So you can say, well, if you want to, if you want to go through this, then we need to do an audit. It's going to cost you X. And then here's your recommendations and there's a fee for that service. So you just build your model and build your consultancy into that as well. So I'm coming up with solutions, not lots of questions, but I listen to everybody else's questions. But I'm seriously, Hacia, I'm so excited about this because this is the kind of change that we want to drive. I set up Chief Meta Chicks to address the gender imbalance in tech and Web3. We see it everywhere. You're in like-minded company where we're all about progressing women. And when you look at the skill shortages and the career opportunities and the pathways, I think there's a huge piece there. And I'm a brand marketing expert myself. I love the idea of really having a brand that kind of punches you in the face. And I think there's some seriously fun things that we can do in that regard. I love your idea of a fashion parade with steel boots. But the other thing is, there's so many amazing things you can do with social media now with TikTok, where you could have someone in a corporate suit and then flip it and they're in tradie gear, and it's who are you? It's your identity. It's how you're creating your own future your way. And then how do we create a community where they're supporting each other, sharing concerns so that women in that environment feel supported. So if there's something happening on site and they need support, there's a community to go to for advice and connection. You're already sort of playing in that space. So that's how I think you can keep connected to the people that go through your program and have a way of monitoring their performance and in questions and forums. And again, Michelle does tons of work in that space as well. So,
awesome.
So Michelle's instantly one of your coaches.
Which I'm going to sound like a fangirl. So I've known about your work for a while, Michelle, and I've got two heroes now that I've met. So Rosie Batty and yourself. So I was a bit, there's bits, sweat patches here. I just love the work that you're doing.
Thanks. Jeez, my head would be too big through my gate. Hey, another thing I've
sent me a new website, so I've had a good look at all of that.
Oh, okay. Thank you. The other thing I just thought of in terms of target market that Deborah was, it was Deborah or Lizzie that talked about who are the women that are likely, and I think we do go to school kids, and of course we've got to get in really early. That's the long play, right? Yeah. But I think what are the other forces that are strategically at play in terms of workforce? Number one, women who want to reskill, particularly after returning to the workforce after caring responsibilities. And I think not every woman wants to go in and become a coder or, whatever it may be. And, I look at my own wife, and if she had half a chance, she would have been a tradie, right? So, so I think there's that cohort. And what are the other forces that are coming into play? You look at all of the talk around artificial intelligence is going to, take out a layer of jobs or a layer of roles. Now, of course, that's not a here and now, but it's going to come up, pretty fast. So I think how might you be thinking about how to leverage those forces that are actually going to provide you with some tailwinds? And again, you're going to end up having supply, and we've got to match supply and demand a lot better with our workforces and our skills. So I think there's some real things in your favour there.
Yeah, amazing.
Yeah. The other thing that I was thinking as you were talking to around the programs in schools, there's schools in sports programs, right? So I'm on boards of national sporting organisations, and, one of the funding opportunities is running those programs at grassroots to get participation, and it's a schools in sports program. I reckon we lobby the government for, trades in schools and encouraging more women, because the solution is addressing the skill shortage, right? the answer is getting more women in so that there's more people locally that we can get into jobs. How do you do that? Well, you tap into the other 50% of the population that are currently not even considering it because it's not open to them. And then what do we need to do to support on ground to make sure that that experience is great? Of course, there's policies, there's HR, but there's got to be all the facilities that you talked about, but also the opportunity for women feel safer in a crowd, right? You go to any of these AI or Web3 events and, women that are working in this space go, oh my God, I'm so sick of dealing with the crypto bros. Just get me out of here. I just want to talk to a woman. And there's, Women in Web3 Travels is a group that I'm involved in. They want to travel to these events together so they feel safe and so they can talk to like-minded people. We need to be able to create that in the workplace. And that's why I think the opportunity is to go to the big ones where you can set that up and we can set up the infrastructure and the environment that supports women, create that as the blueprint, put it up in lights. It's a big tick and a big success for the government. It's a big tick and a big reputation driver for the organisation. And it's a big tick for gender equity and inclusion. So, I think that you've got to think about how do we create the herding behaviour.
I agree.
It's that first follower and then every follower after, and you almost disallow not doing it because you just focus on the hero.
The other to build on that as well, Nikki, is that university and the cost of university is now, once again, in my lifetime, putting tertiary education in terms of university out of reach for a lot of people. We saw VCAT or not VCAT, VCAL or, vocational based training really have the funding ripped out of it essentially 15 or 20 years ago. So, and there's now a need to wind that back up. So again, I think you're at a really good time and figuring out those trends and really leveraging them and building them into your pitch and who you're talking to say, not every kid is going to go to university. Not every kid can either. There are kids now being sent out to work because there's no way they want to be saddled with a HECS debt or mum and dad can't afford to send them to uni. So, it's almost like my childhood. You either you got a trade, you went and worked in the bank, or you went to, I lived in the country, or you went to the big smoke to go to university if you could afford it. So, there's these trends which I think are really in your favour that need to be built into your pitch and why this is so important.